Yep, here we are. What's up, everybody? Happy Sunday. Happy Labor Day weekend. It's finally here. Football season is finally here. I am Cass Hargis. That is Jason Dewey. Thanks for joining us on this Sunday night to talk some ball. What a week we've got. I know college football was in full swing this weekend. It was a heck of a weekend for that. Notre Dame and Miami being played right now as we speak, and we still have one more college football game tomorrow night. But Labor Day weekend is the start of college football season. It also indicates week one of Louisiana high school football, and it's here, man. Jason, we're fired up for it.
Yeah, we're ready to go. I know that it's been an exciting week, especially if you're a fan of teams in Louisiana. Right, for college football, it's been a lot of great games played. You know, last night LSU getting that big win on the road, Tulane getting a massive win over Northwestern, kind of making a little bit of a statement there. Again, putting some teams on blast, letting them know that they're a serious contender. And when you look at the recruiting trail and the players that they've been tapping up in these recent classes in Louisiana, you can definitely see that is going to continue. So fired up about some high school football this week, though.
Yeah, no doubt. And we'll get into some big matchups that are going to be on the slate for week one. But before we get there, we can go ahead and look back at the jamborees. Jamborees, just for those unfamiliar, if you're familiar with Louisiana high school football, you know exactly what they mean. But it's a half a game, essentially. It doesn't count, but it's played just like a real football game. The full uniform, Friday night, the whole deal. And, while you can't really gather, I don't think you can gather some final answers from jamborees. You can definitely get some clues. And they had some big ones last week that we can definitely take some things away as we get into the beginning of this season. Anything catch your eye last week, Jace?
Yeah, there was a lot of games that definitely stood out. You can't go through them all, obviously, but first of all, whoever needs to hear this in South Louisiana, man, the Bayou Jam up north is an incredible event. I know a lot of people down south are like, man, the real football is played down south. But look, the event that they hold up north is really impressive. They have 12 teams there. They have press conferences, interviews, the whole full 9 yards. It's an incredible event. It's played, I think it's played in the Independence Bowl, and it's a spectacle. I would love to see something. I know we have a lot of big jamborees out here, man, but I would love to see something similar out here. Just, again, not a specific game, but just for those. And so somebody wants to steal that and run with it. It was my idea. I'm more than happy to co-sign it, but I'm not, putting it together. But in terms of the games that were played last week, we're not going to go through in depth each one of these, but some of the ones that stood out. Ruston took a 13-10 edge on Neville. Ruston's a team we're going to talk about later on. Neville going to have a really good shot to win their district this year and make a nice run, as they always do. Both teams really will. Ruston, again, trying to make that climb back to another state title after last year, not able to finish the job in the Dome. Calvary and Union Parish always interest me. Calvary knocked off Union Parish 27-6. Cass, that's one that stands out because that is district opponents playing each other, and that's not deep. Teams are allowed to get better as the year goes on, and as you mentioned, this is a dress rehearsal. This is not a true game, but it's played like a game. However, when one team is that much better with these two this early in the season, it's kind of an indication that they have a really good shot, and Calvary is always one of those teams that can make a run.
Yeah, no doubt. And it is, and especially with them in that Ruston Neville game, that's also a district game as well, which we talked last time. That's kind of odd. With that score being 13-10, I don't know what you can take out of it other than both teams are going to be really good once again. But you're right, that Calvary Union Parish game with the score being as it is, Calvary's always got some firepower. They're always able to put up some points. Union's usually got athletes all over the field, and they can put up points as well. And to see them only scoring 6 and maybe an area for concern, but again, in the Jamboree, there's not much game planning as far as trying to put things in to beat the other team. It's more you focusing on yourself. You're going to make sure you put enough in to go and give yourself a fighting chance in that game. And look, with it being district opponents, maybe you do nothing that you plan on doing in a regular season. depending on how that coaching staff wanted to handle it. So, but that is interesting to see that score. The one other score, and this one, the same thing kind of played out last year, and I don't want to get too deep into it before we bring this up, but St. Aug beating Shaw 28-7.
Yeah.
They did the same thing to him last year. And, I saw Coach Hank was very well aware of that and said they did it to us last year. We won the state championship. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it is. But, man, this St. Aug team, we talking before we came on air, I'm all in on the Purple Knights this year with what Coach Robert Valdez has done. That's a program traditionally one of the most historic and tradition-rich programs, not just in the city, but in the state of Louisiana. Just had trouble finding consistency really over the past 10, 15 years. And it seems like what Coach Valdez has done is given that program some stability, some direction. He's really, really done a great job. And it's kind of like everything has been building up to this year for that Purple Knights team.
Everything that Coach Hank Tierney has done for Shaw is exactly what Coach Valdez has done for St. Aug. I think St. Aug is it's a team last year you saw them building up and you were kind of like, man, this is a team that could make a run. And this year definitely has that vibe. It has that feeling of it's tough to say, right, when you're talking about the Catholic League, because it's very hard to say this team is so much better than the other because the way the schedule is slated out, there are no bye weeks, there are no gimme wins. You have Carr in the district who, again, I don't want to over-embellish Carr, but we saw what they were able to do last year. They have probably, arguably, I would say, the number one player in the country. Everybody talks about Lamar Brown, but Richard Anderson is a guy who, up front defensively, has been a monster for 3 years now. And we're going to talk about him a bit later. But I think when you're talking about a Coach Valdez team, this is a guy who's had success at St. James, won them a state title, who had success at Scotlandville, who we've seen take a dip since his departure. Again, goes off to college and comes back. And he has one of the best quarterback wide receiver duos in the state, I would say, in Couillon and Miguel Whitley. For those who don't know Miguel Whitley, putting you on blast now, you'll know him soon enough. He is an incredible wide receiver. I got to call a game with him last year. And, I mean, they were just dropping 9 balls him and just go make a play. And he is that type of guy. He's the difference maker. He's a junior, has a ton of D1 offers. And Cash, you're talking about that score in that game. This is with injuries to the running back position. There were 2 running backs out for that game. Patrick Robinson Jr., yes, Patrick Robinson Jr., Patrick Robinson's son, who is a running back there. And I believe Keith Hill wasn't full speed. Yeah, I believe it was Keith Hill. I know there was another guy who wasn't all there, but you have a ton of wide receivers. There's a ton of talent at St. Aug, and man, if you don't know that they're a team to be reckoned with this year, let this be your notice. They are a team that you don't want to play with.
Yeah, no, they're going to be exciting to watch, and I feel like they're the team. They're going to continue to get better throughout the year as well. What they are right now is not what they're going to be at the end of the season.
Raekwon Williams is another guy I wanted to mention. 4-star recruit as well. Ton of offers. Florida, LSU, big name schools. Had a kickoff return for a touchdown in the Jamboree. Another big guy to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, there's weapons everywhere for them, man.
Yeah.
And traditionally, that's what they are. But with Coach Valdez and what he has done, it's really kind of put them in a position to go make a deep run in the playoffs. Before we jump ahead and look ahead to this loaded Week 1 schedule, one other score that stood out, and I think anytime these two teams get together and play, it stands out if you're a fan of Louisiana high school football. Evangel and West Monroe played in Jamboree. Evangel wins 27-20. Again, the final score, not real sure what you can take out of it, but seeing those two teams on the field playing each other in a competitive game, it brings back shades of, the late 1990s in the Superdome, and it's always cool to see those two get together and play.
One takeaway you can have is I mentioned this young man's name a week ago. Trez Davis is a dog. 3 touchdowns in that matchup, wide receiver for West Monroe. The West Monroe in that district, again, they took some losses last year. DeMichael Dizer, now the head coach, trying to bring some stability to a program that has had a lot of coaches in and out. I really like this team. I think they're going to have a chance to build. But with the way all these teams have to set up their schedule, a lot of teams avoid them. So you don't get a few games to take a breath. And as you mentioned, Ruston's schedule last year, they went on a Texas tour and played 3 really elite Texas schools last year. So these northern teams, again, maybe a little closer to the border, so they get to pull from Arkansas and Texas, but they don't really get breaks.
No, they don't. And speaking of not getting breaks, we're going to jump in and go straight to the slate on Friday night. And man, we talked about the playoff structure and how we're structured in Louisiana. It doesn't just depend on district standing; it's on your PowerPoints. So games this week. Week 1 games count just as much as games in week 9 and 10. So if you're not ready to play, that this can dictate where or who you're playing in the playoffs. And Ruston plays Acadiana. Man, that's awesome. That is such a big time matchup. Two programs that traditionally are playing deep into November and into December. Physical, big, athletic, well-coached, anything that you can want in a high school football game, you're going to get in Scott, Louisiana on Friday night when Ruston travels down. Like you mentioned, Ruston lost last year in the Superdome to Central State runner-ups. They lost their defensive coordinator, Kyle Williams. He's now the D-line coach at LSU. Their new defensive coordinator is going to be Coach Marcus Yanez. Coach, good luck. You got the Veer in week 1. We're jumping into that role, and here you go. You're going to see Acadiana on the road trying to stop the Veer. Last year, these two teams got together in Ruston. Ruston won 35-27. And speaking of first-year coaches, Acadiana's coach Doug Dotson making his Acadiana head coach debut at the field named after his father. It's going to be a very exciting atmosphere, a big-time night in Scott, Louisiana.
Yeah, the rolling start for Acadiana, as we talked about last week. Acadiana has run the same formation, the same plays. Again, it's similar vibes to Curtis a bit,
yep.
Right? Like you know what you're going to see. You're going to see the Veer. And again, Coach Dodson said, "Look, that's what we've done, and that's what we're going to continue doing. Why not?" Right? That's been the tradition. That's been the benchmark of that program. Again, they have McKinley up front for that ball club. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell you, Darius McKinley, and of course, Dominic McKinley, his brother, is at LSU. But I'll tell you, I got to watch Darius play against Edna Carr a few years ago in a semifinal matchup, which played at Berman Stadium. And I'm telling you, he might have been the best looking player on the field when I got to watch him play. Darius McKinley, again, for those who don't know, 3-star prospect, once again proving stars really only matter so much, because I'm telling you, he dominated that game against Carr. But when they played a few years ago, he's going to be a real threat. Again, they have some playmakers on offense. Again, they have another DeBetta back to be one of those playmakers, wide receiver. Again, he has a few offers, a few looks. A look for him to be a difference maker in that game. But, man, when you look on the other side with Ruston, you talk about playmakers. A guy you actually mentioned, Cass, and I've been seeing some things as well. Dalen Powell, man. Mm-hmm. Sophomore running back, 6'1", 195, runs like a truck. A really physical back, and that's not even talking about the big man, 6'7", tight end / wide receiver, Ahmad Hudson. Number 1 tight end in the class of 27. Another top 100 player in basketball, getting recruited in offers from Alabama, Auburn, both in basketball and football, I might add. He's a freak show. Definitely somebody who you're going to want to nab in the class of 27 if you're, I don't know, LSU Tigers or somebody in the state. But he's going to a big name program, no doubt about it. And you also have Jaden Anding, who is another top-notch safety for this Ruston team. Bottom line, there's going to be talent all over the field. And it's going to come down to who makes the most plays at the end. Can Acadiana maintain ball control and keep the pace of the game the way they want to, or can Ruston kind of force their hand and with the way that they run offense? We'll see. However it plays out, I'm really excited to watch it.
Yeah, no, and that's right. I think both teams want to do the same thing. They're going to run the football, control the clock, but they both have the ability to make big plays. out of that veer offense with Acadiana, you get a crease that, they got guys that can take it to the house. And then on the flip side with Ruston, they're going to run it right at you out of a lot of 12 personnel, run one back, two tight ends. And you mentioned Powell. This is a stat that really speaks to the physicality and what this program wants to do. 3 out of the last 5 years, the Ruston running back has been first team All-State. And it's been 3 different guys. That's so one, yes, you're getting talented running backs, but that line up front, man, it's one of the best in the state, and that's going to be that not for the weak for sure on Friday night down in Acadiana.
Yeah, and both teams come into the game with new starting quarterbacks, so that'll be an interesting dynamic as well. And you're definitely going to need to you're going to need to lean on the run in both instances to make sure the rest of that game comes along nicely. But really, should be a great one to watch.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, speaking of big time programs playing, next week in the Acadiana region, Archbishop Rummel travels to LCA to play LCA. These two met last year in week 1. If y'all remember, total washout last week in week 1. It was rain all over the state. They actually played in the Superdome last year. Rummel won a shootout 42-35. This year, LCA gets them at home in their place. You have head coach Matt Stanford. This is his first full season as the head coach at LCA. He took over as an interim in the middle of it. Actually might have been after the Rummel game last year. It took his team to the quarterfinals. They got Braden Allen, a Tulane commit. They have Luke Green, a UL commit. Again, that's a team that's never short on talent. And then that Rummel team coming in under coach Nick Monica last year. Probably getting tired of hearing this, but they lost to Catholic in the quarterfinals.
Right.
Once again, but it's going to be a team, again, that's going to lean on their running game, big offensive line, dynamic running backs. And it's almost like a clash of styles here. LCA wants to try to get you into a shootout type of ball game. Rummel's going to want to try to play some ball control and defense. I know Rummel scored 42 last year and won the game. But I think for Rummel to win, they're going to have to try to keep it in the 20s and possess the football.
Yeah, I would agree. And LCA has a ton of weapons offensively. I do think when you look size-wise, I do think Rummel has a bit of an edge. I think up front they have some bigger guys, which, not shockingly, right? You have a 5A program out of Metairie, and you're going to have some bigger guys up front. Really want to keep an eye on is Raymond Hughes, sophomore. He is 6'5", 320. He is a guy who's already getting some D1 offers out of Rummel. Just one of the anchors of their offensive line. But really, when you look at the way that they played last year, right, you do lose running back. It was Norman Taylor, I believe, last year, who was really their go-to guy. You did see a few backs kind of come in the game throughout and kind of step in and get their opportunity, Hawkins being one of them. However, I think you're going to see it's Jaden Terrence, who got a ton of carries in the scrimmage, is what I saw. And, again, making some plays. A new starting quarterback as well, losing a General Buggage at quarterback. What you can expect from Rummel is no matter who is there, no matter how many guys come in and out, they are going to play physical defense, and they are going to make plays. If you don't believe me, go look. They shut out St. Paul a week ago in the Jamboree, which is always a really good. I love they typically play the Jamboree.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get a physical, hard-nosed game, and they really are a similar-ish styles, and that's really usually both teams benchmark. You get an idea of where they are. I'm really interested to see how this game plays out. But on the other side, as you mentioned, LCA has another guy who, again, people around the program are saying the best back they've ever had. And his name is Caden Ballard, who is a really nice back. He's got an offer from a Division I program already. Sophomore, hasn't had a ton of chance to prove himself, but still had over 400 yards a year ago. So really getting that opportunity to step in the limelight. So be really interesting to see how this one plays out, being on the road for Rummel after getting that win in the Dome last year.
Yeah, no, it is. And again, traveling on the road early in the season, one, you like to do it to get your team used to it. You never know when you're going to have to go do it in the playoffs when it matters. So you'd like to try to do it early in the year, so at least your team is used to it. It's a great opportunity to give your kids a great experience, to get on a bus, in Rummel's case, travel 2.5, 3 hours down I-10 and go play in a great atmosphere. But it's going to be a tremendous football game on Friday night. Speaking of tremendous football games, Destrehan goes to Catholic of Baton Rouge. Again, two big-time football powerhouses in Louisiana. They met last year in week one as well in the downpoured rain. Catholic won 23-20 on the last possession. That win by Catholic snapped Destrehan's 33-game winning streak. And that was a big-time deal for Catholic to go to Destrehan to snap that winning streak last year in Coach Hudson Fuller's second year. This year going into year 3 for Coach Fuller. Took his team to the semifinals last year, lost to a really good Carr team, really close. I think they played Carr maybe as well as anybody could have last year. Catholic is a program that, you just expect to see them playing in the semifinals. And typically they end up making it to the Dome. It's a program that just turns out good football players. They're always well coached, really good athletes, and they're just very sound on everything that they do. And then you have a Destrehan program under Coach Marcus Scott, made the semifinals last year where they lost to Ruston. Playmakers everywhere. They lose an LSU wide receiver in Philip Wright. They replace him with Jabari Mack. And it's like, holy cow, where are these guys? Where are these guys coming from? They're all over the place. I think the biggest beneficiary of that, and I think what's going to really make them go this year is the quarterback. He played really well last year, kind of got his feet underneath him. And this year, I think he's going to have a huge season for the Wildcats.
Yeah, Fields.
Yep.
Yeah, Jackson Fields. Again, he's actually committed now to Incarnate Word. But what I love is the story behind him. Cass, we talked about him last year. We knew what he was able to do. But my favorite thing is he blew up really in May over a social media clip. He throws this beautiful pass. He, again, avoids 3 defenders, goes across his body and goes to Mack. And the clip blows up online. It's on On 3 and all these services. And everybody's saying, who is that? The catch was fine. Who is that quarterback? Yep. He got a lot of publicity out of it and really made the most of it. He was injured a bit last year. I think Fields is ready to step into the limelight and take his opportunity and take advantage of it. But when you also have to look in the backfield in Malachi Dabney. He's an incredible back. He ran for it was over 1,600 yards a year ago. Really an impressive guy. I think he's going to get some recognition this year. With again, I do think you bring another wide receiver in Jalen Ash, who transfers over from Rummel. So you're still going to have the targets on the outside, but I really do expect this back to kind of get a little bit more of an opportunity. He's a junior, so there's kind of that big year, right? When you look in terms of recruiting. And on the other side, you have another great back, right? In Jaden Miles, who's another junior back getting offers from a lot of major programs. And what I love about Catholic is every time you go to look at them preseason and figure out what they're going to do, it's okay, let's see who the quarterback is. And they list 6 guys. And I'm not exaggerating. Go look up any information on Catholic, and there are 6 young men listed. I believe Graves is the starter, but I couldn't even tell you. But from what I've seen on film, he looks really impressive. But again, they could literally close their eyes and do eeny, meeny, miny, mo and point to somebody and put them at quarterback. That's the depth that Catholic has and continues to have. But one matchup I'm really anxious to see is this offensive line of Destrehan try to stop this young man, Jaden Vessel of Catholic, a guy who's got an offer. I know he took a visit to Tulane. I'm not positive if he got an offer, but really is a disruptive factor and could be a fascinating player to see defensively. And not to mention, by the way, they have the number 1 safety in the country. Really just a phenomenal safety back there. And I'm blanking on the name. Blaine Bradford, 5-star prospect. He's currently committed to Ohio State. LSU trying to learn back home, hiring one of the coordinator from Ohio State. But regardless, you're going to see, if you go to that game, you're going to see an incredible safety and a defensive end for Catholic.
Yeah, no, there's dudes going to be all over that field. And these two coaching staffs do a tremendous job of coaching those guys up. It's going to be high level football for sure. Catholic's always extremely tough to beat anywhere, but especially at Olympia Stadium. And that's going to be a fun one there on Friday night. Speaking of fun, man, on the West Bank, we got the Battle of the West Bank. This is actually one of two week one games in which there's the two defending state champs playing each other. We're going to talk about the other one later. This is the first one, Shaw at Carr. Battle of the West Bank. Coach Hank has restored the pride and the tradition at Shaw. Won the state championship last year. These two teams played in week one. Carr won 48-21. And it goes without saying the athletes that are going to be on this field for both sides, specifically Carr. But this is a huge measuring stick game. I think if you're Shaw, you go into this after winning a state championship. You're feeling really good about yourself, and here it is. Can we do this again? Can we continue to keep pushing and forget about last year? Let's strap it on and let's try to go do it again. And right out the gate, they get a Carr team. They go to to play at Berman. That's going to be an electric atmosphere.
Yeah, that's not an easy place to play. I've called a number of games at Berman. It's about an intimidating environment. That is definitely a tough one to play at. Look, we can sit here and list everybody from Carr. We already know what they got. You got Johnson at quarterback. You got about 15 running backs you can pull from. You've got 3 wide receivers who can go off at a given moment. And, oh, by the way, in my opinion, no offense to Lamar Brown, I haven't gotten to dig into his film out of U-High, but I've seen Richard Anderson in person, and good grief, he is the Dominican Sue of the high school game. He can completely dominate and wreck an offensive front and ruin your game plan single-handedly. And that's not to mention the rest of the athletes that Carr has. So, I think when you talk offensively about Carr, there's a ton of weapons. A young man I was mentioning the other day is Xavier Owens. So he's a transfer in from California. He's committed currently to Fresno State. If he continues putting up highlights, he will get offers from some other schools. I can't say whether or not he's going to stay. I'm not a recruiter insider, but looking at the clips he was putting up, a really talented guy. You also have Greg Wilfred, who is transferring over from Destrehan. He just returned a punt for a touchdown the other day, by the way, against West Jeff. They can score at the drop of a hat. They are so explosive offensively. And, Shaw's going to have to find a way to stop them. Shaw really has did a solid job defensively, really played some tough teams down the stretch in making their run to the Dome. I'm excited to see what they're able to do. Jaquan Carter is a guy who's a senior safety, a guy who might be who has an opportunity to make some impressive plays in this game. That's the great thing about playing this game if you're Shaw. There's a lot of guys who have an opportunity to get that payday, if you will, right? Like if you have a big game against Edna Carr, you're going to get some attention because there's so many guys at the game. They're going to be there for Shaw in their own right, but just the spectacle of playing at Berman is going to draw a crowd. And I really do think that Shaw has an opportunity here, and we'll see. We'll also get an idea of how good in another way. We talked about St. Aug and playing Shaw earlier. We'll kind of get a chance to maybe see how close St. Aug is to Carr. I'm intrigued from that aspect too to see, because Carr felt like the head and shoulders best team in Division I Select last year, and on the scoreboard it kind of showed it throughout the majority of their run and season. But really, I'm anxious to see how Shaw, defending state champion, comes out and competes against this team, but also kind of mixing and matching and saying, how do these sides match up?
Yeah, no doubt about that. And Shaw's going to find out. If they didn't find out about themselves last week against St. Aug, they're definitely going to find out about them this week against Carr. And I think Coach Hank, man, that's what he does. You go out and you schedule those teams, and you see where you're at, not just athletically, but what you can do as a coach and staff. And you're going to know exactly what you need to improve on after playing someone like Carr, because if there's a weakness, it's going to get exposed this Friday night at Berman Stadium.
But isn't it better to have it week one? It's better to have it week one, right? Like, let's go all out. Let's go week one and see what we got. And I love it. I love the moxie.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. And, just kind of taking a pause from diving into the games, that's something that's kind of come up. If you look at all these games that we're going to talk about, it's a lot of teams that are used to playing past Thanksgiving that are playing each other. And I think that's all related. Those teams, they're not scared to go out and challenge themselves. They're not scared to go out and maybe take a few lumps, knowing that they're going to be better for it later on in the year, as opposed to scheduling games that maybe you're going to roll into. You're not going to get much of a test, and you just kind of go through, and then there's going to be some adversity that hits later in the year. You're not sure how you're going to show up.
Yeah, and
you're going to find out very early.
And to your point, like, we're only diving into 9 games. Yeah, we're not really diving into Notre Dame, Karen Crow, which we very easily could have, or Terrebonne, Riverside, which again should be a fantastic 5A versus 1A matchup. A game that's going to test both of those teams. Like, there are so many games that we could sit here and dive into, but we had to pick 9. So that's kind of how it played out. But man, this week one slate just really gets you excited and the juices flowing when you're talking about high school football.
No doubt. It's fun to finally be talking about real games with real implications, and we're going to get some real results here soon. We go from Berman Stadium on the West Bank. Let's go out to Irvine, California. That is where John Curtis is traveling this week to go play Cathedral High School. And I talked to Coach Jeff Curtis, the offensive coordinator over there, in the summer about this game. Obviously, their team's excited, extremely excited to go out there. It's a great trip for the program. It's going to, a showcase for the state of Louisiana. They understand they're representing our state when they go out there and go play Cathedral. Some differences here. Cathedral's already played 2 regular season games. They're 1-1 on the season already. They're ranked number 14 in the state of California, this being obviously John Curtis's first regular season game. Cathedral has a quarterback that's committed to Sacramento State, and they have a wide receiver, Quentin Hale, who's a 4-star receiver who is deciding between USC and Oklahoma. So they have some weapons. It's going to be a very, very big test for Curtis to go out there. I don't know this as fact, but I'm going to venture to guess. I don't think Cathedral sees many offenses like Curtis is going to roll out there at him. If Curtis can handle the travel and the schedule and all that goes into going to California to play a high school football game, if they can do a good job with that, I like their chances of going out there and, really putting a feather in the cap for the state of Louisiana.
And you have reason to believe that. So going back to 2004, they played 21 out-of-state games. Okay, they are 16-5 in those matchups. Now, they've never been afraid or backed down from anybody. Their most notable out-of-state game has to be when they took on defending national champion Hoover, Alabama. And you're making that face because that's around when that was your senior year, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was my senior. Yeah, it was either my senior or first years in college. It was on 2-a-days. The 2-a-days.
Yep. So they actually played St. Charles that same year. That was Joe McKnight, David Seaman. Yep. And they were crowned national champions that year. That's the most notable one. But really, this is a team that consistently plays out-of-state opponents, is not afraid of a challenge or ready to back down. But to your point, I think when you look regionally, there's some of these like niche offenses that kind of crop up and are really unique and embedded and ingrained into that state's fabric. And for whatever reason, split back beer is a staple in Louisiana. We talked about 3 teams already tonight that run that formation and religiously. You have John Curtis. I mentioned Karen Crow a moment ago, and Acadiana. So these are just a few of the teams, but this is a very regional thing. So to your point, when you're not used to seeing that offense, it can be difficult to know how to stop it. And you can practice running against air and doing it, but when you're going off of hitting off of a tee in practice squad, and you're seeing a 105-mile-an-hour fastball in the real game. So it'll be interesting to see how they go. Jacoby Boudreaux really impressed a few nights ago when they played East Jeff. I think he's a back that's going to get a few touches, but really interesting. They're starting a sophomore quarterback in Landon Padgett. who has really looked nice so far, but you're going to know this is a big opportunity. You're going to feel some pressure going play at this massive event in California. It'll be interesting to see how they play. Defense for Curtis has always been a staple. They're going to have to show up. And I think when you look, they're going to have to make sure that their offense gets a few opportunities. And it starts with Jeffrey Curtis, 115 tackles a year ago, all-state player. He's going to have to be the guy that this defense leans on to make sure they get an opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt. And, again, I have no doubt that that coaching staff and the players are going to handle that travel well, but it's different. Obviously, you flying across country to do it. So they can handle that defense. John Curtis, you know what they're going to do offensively, and you know the defense is going to show up and be physical. And if they can do that, they could slow down Cathedral. That offense really has a chance to get rolling out there on the West Coast. And, man, that's going to be a fun one to watch. Anytime our state, schools from our state are able to go play other states, obviously you want your state to go and do well and show well for Louisiana. And it seems like those matchups are starting to become more and more common. Back in the day, like you mentioned earlier, when Curtis went to Hoover, it seemed like they were the only school that went and played someone out of state. Now it's more and more common, especially schools here in Southeast Louisiana playing teams in Mississippi or teams in Northwest Louisiana playing teams over in Texas. So that's going to be a fun one to watch here this Friday. That game is actually just going to be played at 4:00 Central, our time. So a little early start to your Friday of week 1 in Louisiana high school football.
And that game will be live streamed too. It will be live streamed on YouTube. So for those people who want to watch it, again, it's Curtis is live streaming that game on YouTube.
Yep, no, that'll be good. Good stuff. We'll go from California up to Shreveport, Louisiana, where we have Neville at Evangel. Again, two proud programs facing off in week 1. You've got these two, they played last year. Neville won 42-24. Seemed like after this game is when that offense for Evangel really started to get rolling, seemingly putting up 50 points a game, every game, behind quarterback Peyton Houston. He's got 32 total offers. But aside from that, last year, he threw for over 4,400 yards with 38 touchdowns, over 5,000 total yards and 45 total touchdowns. He may be one of the more exciting players to watch in our state. Going against a Neville defense under head coach Mike Collins, a longtime defensive coordinator from UL Monroe. This is his second year over at Neville. Neville was the 1 seed last year in the Division I non-select bracket. They lost to Central in the semifinals by 1 touchdown. So that's a program and a team that's hungry to get this year started off right. They're looking for a state championship. That's what kind of, that program is built on that type of tradition. And this is going to be a really, really fun matchup on Friday night.
Neville got a quarterback that can spin it too now in Parker Robinson. Really, he's a junior quarterback. He has a few offers. One of them is Campbell, which is a bigger FCS program. Yeah. Look, defense for Neville is really solid. They got some guys that can fly around the football field. Jaden Reed, really impressive safety, committed to Louisiana Lafayette. Had 120-plus tackles last year, 2 interceptions. He's a guy that flies all the way around the field. Of course, they're going to make plays offensively, right? When you have a quarterback like Robinson, you're going to be able to find some playmakers. But the other notable guy is Julian Burns, UNC commit, 4-star safety, a brutal hitter. When you talk about have some pop in his pads, this young man flies to the football, really lays the wood. He's a guy you're definitely going to be noticing if you're paying attention to football up north. But to the flip side, I think Evangel feels like they've got a lot to prove this year. They went even last year, not something typically you'll see out of Evangel. They went 6-6. But you talk about Peyton Houston, of course, notably, but John Casey is a wide receiver who's Louisiana Tech commit. In his own right, a really solid football player. And Damari Drake is he's played running back, he's played linebacker, he flies to the football. The way he fills a gap from that second level really makes it difficult and is suffocating to any opponent's run game. And he gets to the quarterback, man. When you see him blitzing, you better make sure your head's on a swivel because he's there. So again, I don't know who I like in this game. I just know if you like football, you're going to watch this game. This is a fascinating matchup. It's going to be a really great. We talk about barometers, but really it's week one. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like there's playoff implications or there's so much on the line because unlike the transition that college football is going through, we understand that's the nature of high school football. You can play this team this week and then have to play them again in the playoffs. But this is a great opportunity for both teams to see very early in the season how maybe what they need, what adjustments they need to make moving forward. But both of these teams will be in the thick of it at the end of the year.
Yeah, no doubt. That's the beauty of what we're talking about now with all these matchups is they're important. They are going to, at some way, shape, or form, impact the playoff discussion. But no one's season's going to end this week, and it's going to make for some fascinating matchups and some really exciting football, really all throughout the state. And we got two more games to get to here, both at the Division III level. You have Newman at St. Charles Catholic. This is a rivalry that dates back, seems like for years. They used to be in the same district. They continue to play now that they're not in the same district. I actually called this game last year at Newman. Again, it was in week one, so it was raining. Newman returning a bunch of guys last year. St. Charles breaking in a bunch of new players. Newman won the game 24-10. It was the first time Newman had beaten St. Charles Catholic in 4 years. And when the game was over, you could tell that meant a whole lot to that program. To get over that comet hump, so to speak. They really wanted that game. They played really well. They got the win. You could also tell that Coach Wainstein at St. Charles was breaking in, some new playmakers after losing a bunch from the previous year. All of those guys are back for St. Charles. Newman lost the quarterback, Eli Friend, lost some playmakers at receiver. They returned to running back Jake Randall, who I think is maybe one of the most underrated prospects in the state of Louisiana. I think Tulane has got a really, really big-time recruit in that kid right there. He's going to have a tremendous career for them. But before he gets there, he's going to have a big year for Newman. Coach Aaron Weiss's first year for Newman. It's the first Newman football game in 25, 30 years without Coach Nelson Stewart around, whether it's a player, an assistant, or a head coach. So another fascinating matchup, a big-time matchup. It's going to probably be another low-scoring, close, tight ball game, just the way Coach Wainstein and the Comets like it. Being at home, I think, gives them a little bit of an advantage. But Coach Weiss is getting thrown right into this rivalry right off the bat.
Yeah, these are teams that are familiar. I mean, we played Newman back when I was in high school. That was around when you call it the rivalry kind of reignited. It was really a game that was played in the 90s. Late 90s to mid 90s, and then we kind of reignited that series. Some great players come out of that game. But to your point, Cass, I think when you look at this matchup, there's a lot of new on Newman's side, and there's a lot of returning and consistency on St. Charles's side. You will see a new offensive game plan as Coach Cheddar from Country Day comes over as the OC. And I do think that'll be interesting to see how the offensive dynamic changes or morphs. But you will see Landry at quarterback again, who's again a younger guy, still a junior, but he's been getting experience since his freshman year. You expect to see him, grow. Skylar Edwards might be one of the most underrated backs in the state. Had a little bit of injuries in the beginning. That's one thing I do want to point out. I think if you're the Comets, you do probably feel like, man, we really should have had that one last year. We had some injuries. We had some bumps and bruises, but you can't play the shoulda, woulda, coulda game. This is their opportunity to play to play out that shoulda, woulda, coulda. They looking to be full strength. Again, you have those offensive pieces coming back, but also, man, you got Preston Calm at defensive back, who's a really nice playmaker for St. Charles. But you have a ton of weapons offensively for Newman as well. Like you mentioned, Randall is a great one. Charles Wilson is a guy who's got a scholarship to go play baseball, a really dynamic playmaker, was all-district baseball player, but really is very wide and rangy offensively. might not have gotten the opportunities because there's so many weapons. Hendricks Hill is a wide receiver who you're going to see. You also got the big boy up front, Henry Jackson, who is committed to Cornell right now, is really going to look to try to bust some opportunities for that run game with Randall in the backfield. But we know the staple of St. Charles Catholic football is in twofold: special teams and defense. And Wayne Stein, the head coach of St. Charles, who's been around the program for 20 plus years, who's, to my knowledge, the only coach that has won 2 straight consecutive titles while coaching 2 sports in consecutive years. For those who don't know, baseball and football, he won back-to-back titles with both programs in back-to-back years. So again, we know Coach Stein knows what he's doing. He always has a great defensive game plan. His staff in place knows their role. I think it's going to be a fascinating matchup. And again, that game is actually going to be Thursday, and that's going to be live streamed on, I want to say, LHSAA network. It is going to be live streamed somewhere, so you'll be able to watch that game as well.
Yeah, no, and Wayne Stein does such a great job coaching that football team. Like you said, he's a great baseball coach, or was a great baseball coach, and his teams, whether it's on the football field or baseball field, they're going to show up, compete, and they're going to be tough. And this football team's they mirror him. They're made in an image of him, and you know exactly what you're going to get when they show up. Again, another really, really good matchup. Early on, we talked about the Shaw Carr game being a matchup of 2 defending state champs. The other one in the state is happening over in New Iberia. Vermilion Catholic travels to Catholic High, New Iberia. The second matchup of both defending state champs playing each other in week 1. VC played last year. They got the victory over Catholic High, New Iberia, 14-10. VC under Coach Brock Prejean, they've been knocking on the door. They finally got over the hump and won one last year. They lose Jonathan D'Artes, a 4-year starter for them. He did everything for them, played quarterback, led the team in rushing. He made that team go. So replacing him is going to be important and paramount. It's going to be interesting to see how they kind of overcome his absence. They haven't played a game without him in 4 years, so this is going to be a little bit different for them. And then over with Catholic High, New Iberia, Coach Matt DeZormo, defending his state championship. That Catholic High New Iberia team, that's a program that's always very solid, very consistent. I saw it today, Jason. I think you might have retweeted or tweeted. They've got safety Karen Eugene just got an offer from Ohio State, so an extremely talented player. That's going to be another. These two teams open a year with each other, pretty much every season. So it's always going to be a great game. A lot of familiarity with both teams. Now both teams coming off of a state championship, kind of some high stakes matchup going on in New Iberia. Yeah,
and obviously you just mentioned at Jason Dewey on Twitter. My name's in the bio on Twitter as well. If you're interested in high school football, I mean, that's all I do. I'm tracking it. I'm tweeting it. I'm retweeting it. But yes, you mentioned it. Karen Eugene, dad played in the NFL. Look, man, he's the type of guy who you put him in the game, he's shutting down half of the field. He's that type of playmaker. Double-digit interceptions last year. I've seen various numbers. Again, high school stats online, very touch and go. But from what I've seen, again, double-digit guy, made some plays in the game against Newman that I got to see. But he's not alone. You also have Xander LeBeau, who moves from tight end to quarterback. Really expect him to play a role in here, but new starter at quarterback. Again, I believe the previous starter was there for, I think he started for 3 years, if not 4. And I know he's now moved on. He's actually playing ball at Community Christian out in Lafayette. That's a newer community college out there. And I mean, really an impressive run at Catholic New Iberia. But Owen Morris in the backfield, man, talk about a tank at running back. And the crazy thing, when I'm listening to these guys, they all can play both ways, right? Like you'll see them play on offense for a play or two or situationally, just like Leighton Mitchell. Leighton Mitchell is a guy who was listed, I believe, at safety or cornerback, and you see him getting jet sweeps running around. So they find a way to maneuver their playmakers. They are a very dangerous team to keep an eye on. But as you mentioned, Brock Prejean over on the other side, he knows what he's doing. His team has been in the thick of it quite some time. Finally broke through, got an opportunity to win that title a year ago, and it's going to be a lot of new, a lot of new because they are 1A. They're a smaller school, so expect consistency. Expect their game plan to not change or waver. It's going to be interesting to see how Catholic New Iberia takes that energy after a year ago and comes into this game, because that was the only loss they had all season. And when you look at the run they had to go through to win that state title, and that was brutal. So I am fascinated to see this matchup. And again, fun fact for those who didn't know, Coach Desermo, the head coach at Catholic New Iberia, his brother is the head coach at ULL, Louisiana Lafayette. So again, talk about a pedigree. His dad coaches the 8th grade team. Again, they all kind of built that Ascension Episcopal program years ago. And again, a great coach. But again, Coach Prejean on the other side, really talented as well, and is given a lot of teams fits with a 1A program. A lot of people like to say, well, it's just a 1A program, man. Tell that to people down at Vermilion Catholic. They've been in it every year and can compete with pretty much any team in the state.
Yep. No, that's two very proud programs, two communities that really get behind both of those football programs and schools in general. But, football means a lot down there to those people, and they take it seriously. And both of those staffs have done a tremendous job. And it's, again, another really, really good matchup early on in the season. That's kind of the look at the state as a whole. Jason, I don't know if you want to go anywhere in particular here as we start to wind down, but I know, man, that just looking at the games and the schedule for this week, it just fires you up because football's back, so that's a reason to be excited. But just the intrigue in the matchups that we have, and hopefully the weather cooperates. Unlike last year in week 1, we get some really good weather, but there's going to be some high level football played across the state.
Yeah, I mean, and again, we only went in depth with these games, but I just kind of want to go through, Cass, and just like we mentioned a few games, but there's so many other places we could have gone. Opelousas Turlings Catholic is an interesting matchup. Huntington West Monroe. Huntington as a team I mentioned last week, really big physical offensive line taking on West Monroe, who has one of the most dynamic offenses in the state. Maybe one of if not the best senior wide receivers in the state in Trez Davis. An interesting matchup there between two brand new coaches. Jesuit taking a road trip to go play Jesuit of Dallas. Let me see who else we got, man. But again, we're kind of beating the horse here. But the point is, there are so many games around the state that we could have pinpointed, and it could possibly be, as you mentioned, because teams are looking to challenge themselves, get those power points up early on, or a guy who I know personally, Coach Frank Monica, always said, you're not going to be able to play with the best if you don't play the best.
Yep.
If you don't schedule the best, you don't know what you can do. And how do you can't solidify who you are as a team without knowing yourself, both the positives and the negatives, the strengths and the weaknesses. And you galvanize your team through seeing the cracks, through understanding your weaknesses. And you don't get that from playing teams that you're going to be able to beat. So for the games that we talked about, and there's a ton of others across the state, respect to a lot of teams in the state who, as opposed to saying, look, we're going to just try to find a game that we can maybe win, really going out of their way to schedule tough opponents and making the product something that fans of high school football in Louisiana can be proud of and excited to go watch.
Yeah, no doubt. That's the key there too. Not only is it going to help your team, you're going to face adversity no matter what your schedule looks like at some point in the football season. And if you want to make the run that everyone at this point in time, if you were to ask every high school football player in the state of Louisiana on August 31st, if they're going to make it to the Superdome, they're going to tell you yes. Well, to get there, there's going to be some adversity that hits, and it's better to find out early what that's like and how to get through it than it is to find out in the second week in November when, if you don't handle it the right way, your season's over. So there's a lot of teams that are going out and challenging themselves. And like you said, if you're a fan of Louisiana high school football, you got to be ecstatic about this slate of games that we got. Get out there, go support, your local programs, go support these kids. Go watch some really good football. Go watch some really good football, and it's fun. There's nothing quite like a Friday night, and for these kids that are playing in it, they enjoy it. But you fans, go out and go catch a football game and go enjoy that and watch some really high level football game from some really tremendous, not just football players, but some athletes and some really good coaching staffs that we have around the state. Anything before we close out over there, Jason? I know we're going to look ahead to what's going to be coming up next, but anything looking back?
Yeah, one thing, just on a personal note, when you look at football season in general, for me, it brings me back to my childhood when I was 11 years old and I was a kid who just loved football, and I loved my LSU Tigers and was making an LSU football website. And one thing I loved is watching Saturday mornings, watching game day. And in 2003 was really the big year when LSU won a national title in 2003, and game day for the first time came to town, and I got to meet my guy, old Sunshine Scooter Lee Corso. And a lot of kids when they grow up dream of playing college football or high, or in the NFL or playing baseball. I always knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to talk football. I wanted to talk baseball, and a lot of that is attributed to watching Lee Corso every Saturday. So getting to watch his send-off, man, it was awesome. And, for the impact that he's had on all levels of football fans, all 30 years worth of generations of football fans, man. And getting to see his send-off this weekend was really awesome. And, again, what an incredible career he's had and the impact he's had, not only from media standpoint, but from coaching and playing. Just an awesome guy. And, again, really proud to say that I got to watch him over these past 30 years and see the growth of college football under him.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's, if you're of our age or about our age, it's like the soundtrack to your Saturdays in the fall. No doubt about it. That was really cool to watch yesterday morning. So that kind of wraps up our show for the night, looking at the games that we have coming up in week one. On Tuesday, we're going to interview we'll have a coach on the interview that will not be live. That recording will be dropped on our YouTube channel. We'll also put a link to it on our Twitter page that you can follow at talkin_ball, LATALKIN_ball, BALLLA. You can look for that on Wednesday. Next Sunday night, we're going to do this thing live. We'll have our man Lance back from the beach. Hopefully he didn't get too sunburned over there out in Orange Beach celebrating Labor Day, but we'll recap the week. We'll go through, all those games we talked about tonight, and then we get to look back. We get to look ahead to what's coming in week two. But man, what a great time of year. It's here. Football season's here. It's no better time, in my opinion, than the fall. I love it. Love sitting here being able to talk football and highlight all the great things that are happening within it around our state. And we really thank y'all for watching, following along. Follow us on our social media channels, and we also have a big announcement that we're going to announce maybe next time we're out live here on a Sunday. Something really cool coming down the pike. But for Jason, I'm Cass. Thanks for following along. Thanks for talking ball with us. We'll see y'all next week. See you.